Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Angie Gorder, founder of Retention Project, to discuss the protocol, which is a 5-part policy infrastructure to help funds attract and retain the best and brightest women in finance. Angie, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you for having me, Jill. I'm thrilled to speak with you.
You got it. And before we get into the protocol part of it, tell us about the Retention Project. What was the genesis behind your work?
So the genesis behind my work is that I've been in the industry. I've been in high finance for 25 years, only to see time and time again, firms were losing their best rising star female investing talent, mostly because of lack of support, infrastructure, and sometimes even policies. The lack of women in the highest echelons of high finance gets a lot of airtime, but not a lot of action. So I decided to pause my career, and I'm working to address the issue.
So tell us about the cornerstone of the Retention Project called the protocol.
The protocol is a series of HR policies. So the first 4 policies are frankly just practical solutions that address simple things like ample leave and transition back to the office. It's a collaborative approach, and it's rooted in common sense, planning, and communication that ensures that work continues while the employee is out. I believe that all things can be solved with a process, and the planning aspect minimizes the disruption while she's gone. The 5th part of the policy is called the commitment, and the commitment was developed to eliminate outdated bias that continues to exist in some of these organizations. For example, that maternity leave is akin to vacation, or that a woman who wants to have a family is somehow less serious about her career.
Why do you think now is the time for this?
The industry is ready. Investors are demanding it. So limited partners within a number of these firms would like to see better gender equity within the highest levels of the organization, especially on the investment team. And I think up to this point, managers have responded by saying that they would hire the women if they existed. And based on my perspective for over 2 years in the 2 decades in the industry, I think this is the broken rung, that if it's fixed, we will then over time start to see more women trickle up to the highest levels.
Tell us about the Wall Street dads.
The Wall Street dads. So when I began this project, I don't have children. And so I needed to understand exactly what it was that I was solving for. So I started speaking with a lot of women in the industry. Most of my interviews for the first year, frankly, were focused on women. But I knew I needed to speak to the men too. And so I called up my network and spoke to as many of them as I could. And what I found is that a lot of these men who I've grown up with in the business who are now running these organizations, they want to hire women. They want to have supportive infrastructure. They want to have organizations that create this kind of environment. And I call them my Wall Street dads because a lot of them have daughters now that are coming out of high school and they're coming out of college, and they want them to work in finance, and they want them to be self-sufficient, and they want them to have a good experience. And so they recognize the need here and are looking for practical tools to help them implement a solution.
And finally, are you starting to see results from the work that you've been doing with the Retention Project?
Yeah, so shockingly, when I first started this project, I had no idea what to expect, but I have felt all along like I'm being pushed by these wonderful forces. There are limited partners who are demanding this, who are out in the markets talking about it, and who need someone to help managers implement solutions. Investment managers also want to implement these types of solutions. And then, of course, there's all the women who don't want to give up their careers just because they want to have families. And so I think that, especially now, given where markets are and the amount of talent that we need in order to navigate them, it's going to be really important that we're not losing any of our talent based on their gender.
All right, Angie, appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining me on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you for having me.